It was the week before Christmas, and my restaurant was buzzing. Every table was reserved, the kitchen was in full swing, and the scent of white truffle and roasted garlic filled the air. Holiday season was our busiest time of the year, and every year I made sure to be on the floor myself. Not hiding in the back office, not acting like a big shot owner. Just doing what I loved, making guests feel welcome in a place built by my family 3 generations ago. That night, the cold wind outside only made the candlelit dining room feel cozier. My staff was already stretched thin, and I was personally greeting guests when the door flew open like a gust of entitlement. In walked 6 young women, all dressed like they'd walked off a glam Instagram post. 5 of them were clearly trying to look impressive. The 6th, she wasn't trying, she was commanding. Mid-20s, designer coat, and that air of superiority you only get from someone used to getting what they want without ever having earned it. She was talking loudly, gesturing with her French-tipped nails, and tossing around comments about how exclusive this place is. I didn't recognize her. That should have been the first clue. She marched up to me with a smug smile and said, "Table for 6. The owner's a personal friend. He always keeps a spot open for me." I blinked. I am the owner, but I didn't say that. Instead, I glanced around the packed room and calmly replied, "I'm sorry, ma'am. We're fully booked tonight. Do you have a reservation?" She scoffed like I'd asked if she worked retail. "Did you not hear me? I said the owner is a friend. He keeps tables for people like me." I should have stopped it right there, told her I owned the place, called out the bluff. But something about her tone, that tone that says you're not even human, just someone in her way, made me pause. I decided to play along. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was the stress of the holiday rush. Or maybe, just maybe, it was time someone like her learned a very real lesson in humility. So I smiled and said, "Of course, ma'am, right this way." I led her and her posse past the busy tables, past the couples celebrating anniversaries, past the families gathered for pre-holiday reunions, straight to one of our most exclusive VIP tables, the kind celebrities sit at, the kind where the menus don't have prices. As I handed her the menu, she didn't thank me. She didn't even look me in the eye. She just said, "Told you," to the girls beside her, and they all giggled like they just won a prize. Little did they know, the real surprise hadn't even started. Karen, I didn't know her real name, but that's what I started calling her in my head, had no idea what kind of table she'd just landed. Our VIP table wasn't your average seat. It came with a different set of menus, curated for special guests. High-end wines, rare oysters flown in from the Pacific Northwest, white truffle risotto, Kobe beef, and cocktails with ingredients they couldn't pronounce. Prices weren't listed. The assumption was, if you were sitting there, you didn't need to ask. Karen leaned back in her seat like a queen. "Tonight's on me," she announced, handing me her platinum card with a smug grin. Her minions, 5 girls with too much perfume and not enough manners, squealed in excitement. I kept my expression neutral, but inside I was already planning the long game. I offered them 3 rounds of complimentary drinks. They didn't hesitate. Their table went through martinis, champagne, and house-crafted cocktails like they were drinking soda. No appetizers yet, no entrees, just alcohol on empty stomachs. Meanwhile, I was watching closely. They weren't whispering, they weren't subtle. One of them, a girl with fake lashes so long they curled into her sunglasses, leaned over and said loud enough for the next table to hear, "Do you think his life feels meaningless? Like he's just a server?" That one hit harder than I expected. Not because it was true, but because it was so easy for them to say. As if people who work in hospitality aren't worth dignity. As if the hands that bring them food and clean their mess aren't real people with dreams, families, or ambition. Still, I kept the smile on. More drinks, more giggles. They made jokes about how I'd probably be scrubbing toilets if they complained to the owner. One even asked if I was single, not out of interest, but out of pity. At one point, Karen actually waved me over and said, "Can you check on our food? We're starving, and maybe some more drinks while you're at it." I took a deep breath, nodded, and returned with another round. They were tipsy, loud, and laughing with open mouths, totally unaware of the storm building behind their carefully curled hair. Finally, their meals arrived, dishes they could barely pronounce, let alone appreciate. seared scallops with saffron reduction, a truffle butter filet mignon, imported oysters with a citrusy mignonette. They picked at it, still drinking. By the time dessert rolled around, a bourbon creme brulee they barely touched, it was time for the check. I printed it, neatly folded it, and placed it in front of Karen with a soft, "Whenever you're ready." She opened it, and everything changed. Her smile froze, her face drained of color. Her voice shook as she whispered, "Is this a mistake?" "No, ma'am," I replied, voice calm. "That's your table's bill, including tax and gratuity. $4,232.78. She blinked fast, trying to hide the panic. Her friends leaned in, one by one, eyes going wide. I thought you said some of the drinks were free." "They were," I answered, flipping to the line that listed the first 3 rounds as complimentary. "Everything else is itemized." Karen excused herself to the restroom. 10 minutes later, she came back with fresh makeup and a fake smile. "Can we talk about the bill?" "Oh, we'll talk," I thought, "but you're going to listen too." Karen sat down across from me, still trying to hold on to her fake composure, but I could tell she was shaken. She smoothed her dress, tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, and launched into a performance that could have won her an award for most dramatic attempt to weasel out of consequences. "Look," she began, her voice suddenly softer, like we were 2 old friends. "The food wasn't even that great. The drinks were okay, I guess. Can we just, cut this in half?" I stared at her, expressionless. She pressed on. "Come on, I brought in a crowd. We were having a good time, right? I mean, it's the holidays. Can't we just be cool about this?" I crossed my arms. "You told me you knew the owner, remember that?" She hesitated for a second, then smiled like it was some inside joke. "Yeah, I do. He told me I could come in anytime. He always keeps tables open for me. I texted him earlier, and he said it was fine." "Oh, really?" I said, genuinely curious. "Do you still have those messages?" "Yeah, totally," she said, fishing out her phone. She scrolled for a second, then held it up proudly. There, on the screen, was a conversation with someone labeled as restaurant name owner. The texts were clearly fake. I could see the message history was short, probably changed 5 minutes ago in the bathroom. The messages were vague, generic, and filled with forced enthusiasm like, "Hey Queen, of course, your table is waiting." I took her phone gently and tapped on the contact info. "This isn't my number," I said calmly, "and I'm pretty sure you just renamed one of your friends." She blinked, stunned. "He has multiple phones." I gave her a long look. "You know what? Let's settle this. Let's call him." Her eyes widened. "Wait, no, that's not necessary." But I was already pulling out my own phone. "If you know the owner so well, maybe you can explain this to him directly." I saw the moment panic set in. Her lip twitched and her voice cracked. "Look, we don't need to call anyone. It's just a misunderstanding." "That's enough," I said, lowering my voice so only she could hear. "Let me make something very clear to you. I am the owner. My grandparents built this place from the ground up. My parents ran it for decades, and now it's mine." Silence. The blood drained from her face. "You came in here, tried to lie your way to the best table in the house, insulted my staff, mocked my job, and now you want to get out of the consequences? Number you're paying the bill. All of it." Behind me, one of the baby Karens whimpered. Another pulled out her wallet. I didn't know," Karen said weakly. You thought you could bully your way through the night," I cut in, "but you picked the wrong restaurant and the wrong waiter." The tears started then. Real ones, or maybe just another performance, but I didn't care. I took the receipt, handed her a pen. "Sign it, or I'll be happy to call the police. We have your ID and card on file, remember?" She signed. Her friends pooled together whatever cash they had, maybe $200 total. Not enough to dent the $4,000 bill, but enough to sting. I stood there, watching the illusions crumble, and as they left, heads down, I couldn't help but feel something I hadn't expected. Peace. 2 days after that unforgettable night, I was catching up on paperwork in my office, still riding the strange wave of satisfaction from how everything played out. The bill, $4,232.38, was printed and framed on my desk like a trophy. I'd even caught myself smirking at it a few times, not because of the money, but because I'd stood up for my family's legacy, for myself. But peace has a funny way of being short-lived. One of my bartenders knocked on the door and poked his head in. "Hey, there's a guy out front, says he needs to speak with the manager." I sighed. "Tell him I'm not available." He shifted awkwardly. "He says it's about a bill from 2 nights ago. He brought his daughter." Of course, Karen. I walked out front and saw him, early 50s, red-faced, dressed like he stepped out of a country club catalog. Karen was beside him, her hair tied back, no makeup, wearing oversized sunglasses indoors. Her head was down like she wanted to disappear. "Are you the guy in charge?" he snapped. "I am." "Good," he barked. "I want to know what kind of scam you're running in here. My daughter was charged over $4,000 for a dinner. $4,000. You trying to take advantage of young girls now?" I didn't flinch. "Sir, if you'll come with me, I'll be happy to explain." I led them into my office and pulled up the security footage from the VIP area. Audio included. I played them the highlights. Karen demanding the table, insulting my staff, bragging about knowing the owner, mocking me for being just a waiter. As the minutes passed, the father's face changed from fury to something close to shame. He glanced at his daughter, then back at the screen. When it got to the part where she told her friends she had everything covered, and then berated me when the bill arrived, I paused the video. "Do you still think she was scammed?" He looked at her. "Is this true?" Karen didn't answer. She just stared at the floor. He turned to me. "I'm sorry, I truly am. I didn't know. I was told something completely different." "I understand," I said, keeping my voice calm. "But I have a business to run." We served them respectfully. They received what they ordered, and everything was documented. He stood up. "She'll be paying the bill. I'll make sure of that." As they left, I heard him start to scold her before the door even shut behind them. "What were you thinking? You embarrassed us. Lied about knowing the owner? Are you out of your mind?" Karen didn't say a word. She didn't look back. That moment, watching a man who once might have believed his daughter could do no wrong finally confront the reality of her behavior, was strangely healing. I wasn't out for revenge. Not really. I just wanted respect, dignity, and for once I got it. Later that night, I told my mom about what happened over the phone. She laughed and said, "Your grandpa would have loved that. He always said if you're going to feed people, make sure they learn something too." Maybe he was right. A week passed after the showdown in my office. I hadn't seen or heard from Karen or her father since. Business was booming. Our New Year's event was already fully booked, and we'd been featured on a popular local food blog. But even with all the good, there was this lingering thought in the back of my mind. Had I gone too far? That night kept replaying in my head. Not just the drinks or the bill, but the moment Karen broke down. The tears, the shame, and then her father's face, hardened by disappointment. I wasn't losing sleep over it, but it stuck with me like the taste of something bittersweet. Then, on a quiet Wednesday evening just before we opened for dinner service, I got an email. Subject, "I owe you more than money." I hovered for a second before clicking it open. "Hi, it's Karen. I don't expect you to read this, but if you are, thank you. I know I made a fool of myself, and I've never felt smaller than I did that night, but maybe that's exactly what I needed. You don't know this, but I've spent most of my life pretending to be someone I'm not. My parents expected me to be perfect, always charming, always polished. I guess I believed the only way to be seen was to act like I mattered more than I really did. What happened at your restaurant was humiliating, but it made me stop and think. That night was a wake-up call I didn't know I needed. I paid the full bill. My dad made sure of it, not just with money, but with a lecture that I'll probably never forget. I've also started volunteering at a local soup kitchen. I thought maybe if I spent some time around real work, I could learn what humility looks like. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just wanted you to know. I'm trying to be better. I read it twice, then a third time. It caught me off guard, not because she apologized, but because it felt real. Not rehearsed, not manipulative, just human. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. She wasn't asking for a response. She just wanted to be heard. And in that, I saw something honest and a little sad. That night, as I walked the floor checking tables, one of my newer waiters, a kid named Marcus, waved me over. "Hey boss, can I ask you something?" he said. "Do you ever get tired of people looking down on this job?" I paused. "Sometimes, yeah, but that's on them, not you." He nodded, then said, "That story about the girl with the VIP table, that really happened?" I smiled. Every word. Marcus laughed and shook his head. "Legend." Maybe. Or maybe I was just one guy who refused to be disrespected in his own home. Later, when the night wound down and the last tables emptied out, I stood by the front window and watched the snow fall outside. The framed bill still sat on my desk, and now it felt less like a trophy and more like a turning point. Sometimes revenge isn't about getting even. Sometimes it's about forcing someone, maybe even yourself, to see what really matters. And in that moment, for the first time in a long time, I felt at peace. A few weeks after Karen's email, life at the restaurant returned to its usual rhythm. Busy weekends, glowing reviews, and the occasional high-maintenance customer trying to charm their way into a full house. But Karen's words still lingered in the back of my mind. I didn't reply, yet something about her apology softened a piece of me I didn't even realize had hardened. Then one morning, as I was sipping coffee before the brunch rush, a letter arrived at the restaurant. It was handwritten, which already made it unusual in today's digital age. The envelope was pale blue with no return address. My name was written in cursive, the kind you only learn from someone who still believes in stationery and taking your time. Inside was a folded letter and a second smaller envelope marked, "Please give this to your grandparents if they're still with us. If not, you." I unfolded the letter. It was from Karen's father. "Dear Sir, I've been trying to find the words to say this properly, not because I believe an apology will undo what happened, but because as a father and a man, I failed. That night at your restaurant was a mirror I didn't want to look into. I've spent years making excuses for my daughter's behavior, always thinking I was being supportive. But I enabled her entitlement, encouraged her arrogance, and gave her the illusion that the world owed her something. You exposed a truth I had refused to see. Since that night, Karen and I have had some of the hardest conversations we've ever had. She's angry, embarrassed, and confused. But for once, she's also listening. I want to thank you. Not just for how you handled that evening, yet with more patience and professionalism than most would have, but for the lesson you delivered. A lesson I never could. Enclosed is something I found recently. My father-in-law, a retired chef, once worked in a family-owned Italian place in the 1970s. He never stopped talking about the couple who ran it, said their son was a sharp kid with a future. He kept a postcard from that restaurant, and I believe it was your grandparents' place. It's a stretch, I know, but perhaps it's fate. Sincerely, Peter. I stared at the letter for a long time, then carefully opened the second envelope. Inside was an old yellowed postcard. The photo on the front was a vintage image of our restaurant back when it still had its original signage. A sepia-toned storefront with my grandfather standing proudly out front, a broad smile under his thick mustache. On the back, scrawled in faded ink, were words I recognized instantly. "Save this for the boy. He's going to do great things." No. My chest tightened. I couldn't believe it. Karen's grandfather knew mine, and he'd written that message. A message meant for me, decades before I'd ever stepped into this role. I had no idea this piece of our history was floating around out there, waiting to find its way back. For the first time in years, I sat down and cried. It wasn't about the restaurant. It wasn't about revenge or respect. It was about legacy, about what it meant to carry on something built with love, sweat, and sacrifice, and about knowing without question that I wasn't just doing this for myself. Later that evening, I framed the postcard and placed it right above the bar where my grandfather's old apron already hung. Staff noticed it immediately, and I told them the story. Every word. They listened, some with tears in their eyes. Karen had started a ripple, and whether she knew it or not, that one terrible night had turned into something much bigger than a dinner gone wrong. It had become a story of change, of humility, and of remembering where we come from. It had been a few months since Karen's father sent that letter, and the postcard from decades past found its way into my hands. That moment had grounded me, reminded me why I poured every ounce of myself into the restaurant. But what I didn't expect was what came next. A week before Easter, I received a reservation request, handwritten again, this time from Karen herself. "Hi, I know this may be a strange ask, and I completely understand if you say no, but I'd like to come back. Not for a fancy dinner or a show, just a meal. Just one honest meal with my father. I want to say thank you, in person. I want to start over, even if just for a moment." At first, I wasn't sure how to respond. My staff, who remembered the chaos of that night, were mixed on the idea. But something inside me said yes. Not out of guilt or to prove anything, but because maybe, just maybe, that ripple had turned into something real. So I reserved a quiet booth in the corner. No VIP treatment, no flash. Just a corner near the kitchen where you could smell the garlic and hear the sizzle of the pans, the heartbeat of the place. When the day arrived, Karen walked in with her father. She looked different. Not in the superficial sense, though her designer shoes had been swapped for modest flats. It was in the way she carried herself. There was no entitlement in her eyes, no flippant smirk, just sincerity, hesitation even. Peter greeted me first, giving me a firm handshake. "Thanks again," he whispered. Karen stood for a moment before finally stepping forward. "Hi, I guess this time you don't need my name to check the reservation." I smiled. "Your table's ready." The meal was quiet at first. I didn't hover, just instructed my staff to treat them with the same level of care they'd offer anyone else. A few plates in, I noticed something small but powerful. Karen helping clear the table after the appetizer. She handed plates to the server and thanked her twice. They ordered pasta, a family-style dish I had named after my grandmother. As I passed by to check on them, Karen stopped me. "Did you ever think that maybe people like me aren't worth giving second chances?" I paused. Honestly, that night, no, but people grow. Sometimes the ones who fall hardest learn the most. She nodded, visibly holding back emotion. "I've started working again, not in PR or branding. I'm volunteering at a youth center in the Bronx, just helping kids with resumes, interview prep, stuff like that. It feels good." Peter chimed in, his voice soft. "I've never been prouder of her." It hit me then, the full circle. A woman who once tried to manipulate her way into status had come back, broken but open. A father who once fueled that ego was now part of her healing. After dessert, they stood to leave. Karen turned to me. "I won't pretend we're friends, but I'm grateful for what you did, for how you did it, and for not destroying me when you had the chance." I nodded. Sometimes people need reminders more than punishments. Then she reached into her bag and handed me something, a donation slip. "It's for a scholarship fund I saw on your restaurant's bulletin board, the one for kids from low-income families studying culinary arts. I hope it helps." I stared at the paper. It wasn't about the amount, it was about the gesture. As they left, I sat down in that same booth, surrounded by the lingering warmth of redemption and pasta steam, the kind of quiet peace that only comes after storms. This place, my place, had become more than just a restaurant. It had become a place where people could change, where legacy met forgiveness, where even a Karen could become someone new. The day I moved into my new place, an airy apartment just a few blocks from the waterfront, I expected peace. Not closure, not triumph, just silence. But peace, it turns out, doesn't come easy when your past keeps knocking. It had been nearly 2 months since I had spoken a single word to my parents. My mom had tried reaching out once or twice, emails that read more like guilt-soaked monologues than apologies. My father, predictably, remained silent. He had made his position clear. In his eyes, I was the betrayer for not giving my sister Amy my inheritance. Never mind the decades of favoritism, the emotional neglect, the way they rewrote history to suit themselves. I had committed the ultimate crime, choosing myself. Amy and I had been talking regularly, slowly rebuilding the fragile bridge between us. Her honesty, though late, was real. She had enrolled in community college and was proud of herself for the first time in years. She even got a part-time job, not because she had to, but because she wanted to. That meant more to me than anything she could have said. One chilly Sunday afternoon, I got a knock at the door. I wasn't expecting anyone. When I opened it, there she was, my mother. She looked older, more tired. The energy she usually radiated, righteous, indignant, always in control, was gone. "Can we talk?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Part of me wanted to shut the door, but I stepped aside. She didn't sit. She just stood in the middle of my living room, turning slowly in place, as if trying to take in the space I now called home, a space she never helped me build. "I saw the photo album Grandma gave you," she started, "the one Dad kept. I didn't know he saved all that. The newspaper clippings, the award programs." Her voice cracked. "I think I convinced myself that favoring Amy meant protecting the one who needed more. But I see now, we didn't protect either of you. Not really." I sat still, unsure what to say. She looked at me then, eyes rimmed with red. I was wrong. About so many things. There it was, the apology I thought I'd waited my whole life to hear. And yet, it didn't feel like triumph. It didn't undo the quiet years I spent questioning my worth. It didn't make up for sitting alone on graduation night or the countless achievements that went unnoticed. But it was something. "I'm working on it," she added. "Therapy. Grandma helped me see it. I don't expect forgiveness overnight. I didn't want to lose you too." I nodded slowly, unsure of my own emotions. Anger, relief, exhaustion, they all swirled together. "You haven't lost me," I said eventually. "But I'm not coming back to that house. That version of family, I've outgrown it." She nodded. Maybe she understood. Maybe she didn't, but she didn't argue. As she turned to leave, I called out, "Mom." She stopped. "Tell Dad I hope one day he realizes what he threw away." She paused, gave the faintest nod, and walked out. I didn't cry. Not then. But that night, as I stood at the window looking out at the city lights, I realized something. The pain was still there, but it wasn't controlling me anymore. I had my own space, my own life, and the beginnings of a new kind of family, built not on blood, but on honesty and mutual respect. The past had shaped me, but it wouldn't define me. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Reddit Confessions for more powerful, real-life journeys. And remember, your story matters. Your voice deserves to be heard.